what we covered, by the things what we covered last week. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir.
Right. So do you have any questions? And I asked you to install Oracle, as well as today I'm going to cover the use of SQL developer as well. So I think you have downloaded that, and you can run it directly. You do not need to install that. Just pressing on the icon, it executes. It takes a big time, but to load the relevant content. Then after, you can work in that environment. That would be very comfortable for you to work. And anyway, you should be able to work under different conditions. Therefore, if you are able to work in command prompt as well, that would be an added advantage, because we can't all the time, we can't expect everything to be available in the industry. Okay. Before we start, do you have any questions? And you have to do the practicals. Therefore, you should start Oracle, as well as you can just click on the Oracle SQL developer. Then in the background, they will be started and ready to execute your code. Therefore, you should do first, you can open your Oracle and connect to Oracle to the command prompt, as well as you can, meanwhile, you can double click on the Oracle SQL developer instance, and it will also ready for you after several seconds. Okay. With that, if you do not have any questions, and it is your responsibility to ask the questions and clarify, right? If you keep quiet, I hope everybody understood it well. Therefore, I'm going to continue the next part. Therefore, if something is not understood by you, it is your responsibility to ask the question and get it clarified, right? Please do not wait someone else ask the question for you, right? That is not going to work. If you have the problem, then you should ask your problem. You should raise your problem and you can clarify that. Okay. In our course, we have already seen anonymous blocks. Apart from these 3 blocks, we have used these anonymous blocks in our previous examples, and here is one example which we used by last week. We have declaration, then begin and end block. There is no name is given here. That is why we call it anonymous. We do not specify by a name. In other 2 block types, we have to specify a name. Those 2 types are One is a procedure, another one is a function. We will be learning on procedures as well as functions later on. Until then, you have to keep in mind for procedures you should have a name, and then after you have another keyword called if, then begin, exception handling as well as end. Right? If you take functions, you have a function name, then you should have a return data type. It's much alike you other programming languages like C Sharp. I think you have experience in previous semester. You should have a return type for function. In the same way, here you should have a return data type to be mentioned. Then you have to use the is keyword again. The rest of the thing is almost alike as the procedure. Begin, then required statements you need to be executed and you wish to execute, then exception handling and end. That is how PLSQL blocks have configured or structured. Small exercise. By now, your command prompt would be ready. First, you can type these statements in a notepad. That is the best way. Right? Create a table called employees with 5 fields. You can select what to include as a column headings. Right? If you need to have constraints, you can decide on them and you can write the constraints as well. This is just a create table statement. So you can quickly try to do that. Then after, once you created the table, you can actually run this code in the PLSQL environment. Then after, you have to insert 10 records. Right? Okay, now try to do it. In the environment, you can create this employees table and insert 10 records. So only one thing we answers. I'm stuck with that thing. It's a very simple exercise. So creating table is very straightforward. I think you should be able to do that. Create table, then the next one is populating table. You can have some insert statement to populate the table. That's all. You do not. It does not take actually much time. Right. I think we can continue. So now I'm going to cover something called SQL scripts. This would be very important for you, even if you work in industry and using command prompt, you can execute this type of SQL scripts. So since I have asked you to save your work in a notepad file, you can come up with something called SQL script with the SQL statements. You have to save that file using extension .sql, not .txt. It's a text file, but if you save it as a SQL file with .sql extension, then it becomes a SQL script. So with this SQL script, you can directly execute using @sign. In your SQL prompt, you can type @sign, then your file file path. Right? In my case, at /e drive Oracle Practicals, I have something called employee underscore details.sql. If you type like this and press enter, then it executes all the statements written in your script. Right? This way, it is very easy for you to do the SQL related stuff. And the other thing, you can fine tune this type of scripts, right? Before you actually do the modification to the database, you can clearly write what to be executed and finalize. After that, you can execute without any fear. Right? Even for testing purpose, it would be very much easy, and the best way is to write a test script and execute, because then all the time what you have to do is execute the script, right? It does not take much time. If you want to type everything from the beginning and do it all the time from the beginning, it takes a lot more time, right? For an example, if you want to create this employee table, and suddenly you may want to drop it, right? That delete the table from the database. Then you have to issue drop table command. Once you drop, you may need to create the table, right? Then you may, if you try to type everything from the beginning, it would take a lot more time, right? Even if you want to populate the table, let's say you want to populate 10,000 statements, 10,000 insert into statements, then it would take a lot more time. And if you try to copy and paste things, it would introduce errors, right? If something happened mistake, then definitely break the operation, right? If you take typical example, if mistakenly, if you have typed the same employee ID twice, where you expect your employee numbers to be the primary key, then it will result in an error, right? Then finding such error out of thousands of lines would become a difficult task, right? Therefore, best way to have a SQL script, then you can execute that script. The way we have to execute the script is, like in my example, you have to type at sign followed by the file path. When giving you the file path, it's very important not to have spaces in between. Right? Since this is command prompt, if you have spaces, you have to give that within quotation marks. So therefore, it's better not to use spaces in between your folder names or file names. Rather, you can combine them using underscore. I think clear to you. Now I'm going to, do you have any questions before we move to the next section?
Sir,
Do you have any questions?
can we use same process to insert data?
Yes. That is why I told you, even in the industry, if you want to have, let's say, 10,000 records, you can have 10,000 records typed in a script, right? The important thing is you have to have the proper script prepared, then executing that would not be an issue, right? Otherwise, you have to type everything in the PLSQL and execute one by one. No? Therefore, you do not need to execute one by one. If you have typed everything in the script, you can ask that script to be executed by the Oracle. Then Oracle execute the script, and script have what you want if you have properly typed there. Right? When we do the inserts, better to have commit statements periodically. For an example, for every 100 lines, you can have commit statements, because if something happened by mistake, even if you missed a semicolon at the end of statement, it would break the operation, right? Breaking an operation would be a problem, because in the middle of execution of a script, if you break the script, then you have to find up to which point you have successfully executed, right? Therefore, you can separate them using commit statements. Then the not committed items may not have properly inserted or properly stored in the memory. Therefore, you can find out up to the last committed statement. Then after, the rest of the thing can only be executed again with the correction, right? If you, for an example, if you have 1,000 insert statements, and you may have commit statements for every 100 insert into statements, right? Then suddenly, if you think it broke the execution by 5th commit, then you know up to 5th commit you have successfully inserted. Then what you have to do is, you can find out the rest of the things which have not committed, and you can, with the correction, you can re-execute. Right? These type of things are very important in the industry, because since you are doing now as a practical, there's no any pressure for you. If something went wrong, you can just discard, you can forget it, right? In the industry, if you mistakenly did something wrong, then you cannot just say sorry, right? It would be a very severe problem there, right? Therefore, you have to be always careful and committed in doing this type of work. That is why we learn this type of best things and best practices to avoid errors which occurs in the development environment. Actually, in real situation. Right. I hope you have downloaded this Oracle SQL Developer, which I have shared. In that folder, there's an icon like a cylinder, which is given here. So you can click on that. Once you clicked on that, it takes some time to load. And since I asked you to do it at the very beginning of today's lecture, by now it should be ready. Then you may see this environment, Oracle, the welcome page. With that, you can create a connection to the database. I think in that folder, I had shared some screenshots where you can create a connection. So using system user, you can create a connection, and I asked you to do the alteration to the system user by last week. Before starting the last week session. Therefore, if you followed that step, you could connect to the Oracle SQL Developer with system user, right? Do we have connected to that? Since I'm now going to show you how you can work with Oracle SQL Developer. Have you opened this Oracle SQL Developer?
Yes, I opened.
That's good. Then, with that, we first identify uh, different sections. Apart from the welcome page, if you click on this SQL icon, then it opens another window where you can type all your SQL. Right? It's very easy for you to type here. You can do copy paste. You can do whatever the modification as you do in other text editors. Right? So in PLSQL command prompt, it was difficult for you to do such operation because limited interactions were permitted there. You can't have cut and paste. The command prompt does not allow you to do such operations. But here you can do it very easily. Even if you found some mistake, then you can correct it. And all the keywords are highlighted. And you are given very higher readability even here. So with this, you can type your code. If you want to save what you have typed, you can go to save button, then give a proper name. Let's say create table practical one. So you can create like that with SQL extension. You can easily do it here using this Oracle SQL Developer. If you want to reopen and execute the same program, same scripts, then you can double click on the saved file and it will open in this environment and you can execute. Right? But you have to always keep in mind, now let's say I have created this table in the database. Then if I try to execute the same SQL command again after next week or whatever the thing, since this table is already available, it will give you some error messages, right, at the output section. Right? It is because you have to be aware and mindful. No tables can be created twice in the same domain. Right? It's a general knowledge regarding database. Therefore, you can to do that. If you want, you have to drop the table. Then you have to have the big picture in mind. If you drop the table, all your work will be removed from the database. That type of thing has to be in your mind. But this SQL developer gives you only the easy features you are expected to do. The section, when you want to have, if you have typed many different SQL statements, if you take one example, I have creatable statement here as well as the insert into statement and one select statement, right? Now if you try to execute this file as a single one, then it would definitely introduce some error, because since this is having a create table, you cannot execute it twice. Therefore, this environment gives you a very good feature for you to select what you want to execute. Right? If you want to execute all the thing in the script, you can just click on this play button without selecting any of the statements. Then it tries to execute all the content you have typed there. But the best way is to selectively execute. Then you know what chunk of statement you executed. Right? Now in my previous case, I have executed this create table employees. Create table statement. Therefore, I should not execute same statement again. But I can type the second uh, statement which I want. Then I select them using mouse. Then I can click on this play button. Then it shows the output. Right, output means the execution statement. Right? Then if you want to uh, have the select statement executed, then you can select on this, highlight on this statement, and then again play the click on the play button. Then it would result in execution of that statement, and it shows you the result. Right? So here is how it is happening. So select all from employees. To do that, you have to be mindful. It's a general knowledge. If you just created the table and asked to select everything from the empty table, then you can't see any records, right? Only the column headings would be visible. Therefore, at least one record has to be there to see records in the output, right? It's a general thing. Now you can create the employees table. Here I have created employees table in this PLSQL environment. Since the usage system, you not be able to access the previous table, you may not be able to use the same table which is created in the previous exercise. I'll send you one script so you can practice using that.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, can you?
I'm going to send you. Yes. Screen, and first you can open it and see how the script is. Then you can open the script in Oracle SQL Developer, and you can execute. First, you can execute the selected mode, or you can just execute the content at once. Anything is possible, but make sure you have opened Oracle SQL developer before you execute. If you want, you can first you can execute only the create table statement, then after insertions. Everybody receive my file. Look at my slide now. This way you can create a connection. So to do that, you can click on this plus sign in under database connections. In my slide, there under connections, you have this plus sign. If you click on that, it prompts interface like this. Now you can type the database system. Before you do this, I asked you to do user alteration by last week, right? In the command prompt, you have to write a statement like a alter user statement. I have given it in the screenshot. So like in the same way, you can alter your user with the password. The same password has to be given under authentication, right? So the username would be system, then password should be what you have given under the alteration part. Then you can do the test connection. If your connection status is success, then you can connect. Then you can do related work, and your database would be visible with the connection to the system. Quickly try to do it and let me know whether you are successful in doing that. Then after we can use this SQL developer all the time we do the practicals. This would be your environment to do the practicals. With that, you can save all your work and you can refer them when you read for the exam. Quickly try this out and let me know whether you have done it correctly or not. Is it successful or not? Those who have connected to system system user, now they can do this practical create table thing in the environment. So you can execute the script which I have shared with you, and you can practice a little bit. Then you can write some select statements and do some practical. Then after we can start the next set of slides. Before that, you should have some hands-on experience to this environment. Quickly do it, that and let me know. And we continue with the next section. I hope everybody of you are able to connect to the database. So, here's a sample program which is not actually connecting to any of the tables. Now you can practice this thing in the SQL environment, SQL developer environment. There you can have the server output on, but even that is not typed by default. SQL developer turns the server output on, so you can observe the output. When you type in SQL developer, you can clearly type the keyword in capital letters, and those and you can easily figure out declaration, begin and end. This is one of the things we started to discuss on blocks. There are three types of blocks: anonymous, procedure, and functions. First, in order to practice this environment, you can just do this exercise example, and then we can move to the next theory section, as well as the exercises and examples. Quickly try this out. I hope everybody of you have gotten the output. Some of you have sent me via chat. So I hope you have done it. Here's again another example. Here what you can do is, here you have to get the user input from the command, from the prompt. So you can try this out as well. Does anyone of you have problems?
No problem, sir.
Right. I think you in SQL developer, it prompts you a window to enter your price. Then once you press enter, then you can observe the output. If you do not see the output but it executed successfully, then you have to set the server output on. You can write this statement and execute it. You can select the statement and execute on that. You can execute the code again. Then you should see the output. Right. With that, this is how we use the comments in PLSQL. Have multi-line comments as well as single-line comments. It have to type your comment having multiple lines. Then you can finish it by typing asterisk again and a forward slash. You can have single line comments, just type it to minus marks. So this is very important when you do this type of programming. You can have some comments to describe your code, right? Even if you want to ignore the execution of a set of codes when you do the testing, you can use this comment symbol, but it is not commenting, right? Commenting is you should type something useful to describe the code. Right. Now we'll quickly look at the records. Records are another data type used in PLSQL. It's a composite data type. Normally, if you look at a record in the table, it's a typical example for this type of data. Right? There you can have many fields those fields are of many different data types. You can have character, vacha, number, etc. So it is a composition of fields. With that you can do many different computations. This is the basic syntax of a record. So you have to declare type, then your record type, then the is keyword, the set of columns to be included. Right? Here the name of the record is the name of the composite data type. Then you have to define the first column, second column, likewise the order in which you are expecting to retrieve or withdraw the value from your database table. Right? Then column data type has to be the data type of the scalar data type in that particular field. Right? For all the columns, you have to define the column name as well as its data type. We'll quickly look at an example. Here I have declared a record, declare type rec_emp is the record, then is keyword, then again the record keyword. Now I am going to get the employee ID, it's of type number, salary, and emp record, composite data type. Right? So then we begin with which is described here. We have to get the employee ID, employee name, employee salary. Therefore, we have to select them from the employee details table here. Then we extract those details and put into a record called rec_emp. Right? Then here this statement is to just content. Right? What we so when you access the record details, you have to use this and emp record, that variable name. Here we declare that variable name and emp record and your field name. Right? That is why I have given in the same color, in blue color. The same thing is required all the time. Right? So for the other as we have the same. Right, we can do more this my next class. Anyway, up to what we discussed today, do you have any problems?
No, sir.
Sure, you do that even at the instant we are doing the lecture, even though you have to somehow find time and resources. I have shared what I can do from the software. Therefore, you can do it at home. And one important thing, when you do the practicals, you can save them and in good way. And you can, when you run the SQL developer and Oracle, you better have performance settings of the machine performance, right? Compared to industrial software, it is very lightweight. But anyway, if you do not have in RAM and hard disk, it may slow down your computer, but you can gain performance if you clean your using the cleanup, right? And you can have the performance as well to base performance.